Welcome to the Genesis of the Doctor podcast, where we're taking a journey to the time and space of the history of Doctor Who. I'm Tris,
And I'm Joy.
and for today's episode, we're watching the first and second serials of Season 7, The Spearhead from Space, and Doctor Who and the Silurians. And this is the start of the third Doctor, so
Yep.
there's kind of a lot to talk about here, actually.
Yeah.
But let's start with our initial impressions from The Spearhead from Space.
Yeah. My first thought when I watched this was that it just felt like it was recorded weirdly. Just like the camera angles and stuff were like very different from the other stuff. But then apparently it was entirely filmed on location. So that would explain why it felt a bit off. And then
That's fair. Yeah, if it's entirely on location. I mean, it's also just very different than everything before this point, right? Like just the presentation to it, the kind of production to it all, which is different.
yeah. Because apparently there was a technician strike at the studio. So like even stuff that could have been at the studio wasn't at the studio. So, yeah.
I see.
But yeah, I thought this was an interesting story. It's a fascinating way to like introduce a new Doctor too.
Yeah, so we have the third Doctor gets introduced, and then we have the Autons and the Nestine consciousness, or I guess technically before it's called the Nestine consciousness, just the Nestines.
Yeah,
Living plastic and all.
I liked the idea where like we have the Brigadier here to also be like, I don't know if this is the real Doctor, so that like people that are hesitant to accept a new Doctor have to learn to accept him with the Brigadier there.
Yeah, you have at least one other character there filling the same role that the audience has there.
Yeah, especially since this is the second time it's happened, so they'd be hesitant.
And we have our quirky post regeneration Doctors again, of course.
Yeah.
Who need to choose. Although, of course, it's for the TARDIS key, but he's very quirky in these first few episodes.
Yeah. And then he's singing in the shower in one scene.
I love how that seems like it's to make sure he's not drawing attention to himself, but those other two Doctors literally just keep staring at him. It's kind of awkward.
Yeah. And then that scene accidentally also revealed that he had a tattoo. So later they gave a lore explanation that like since he was banished by the Time Lords, they put a brand on him, and that's the lore explanation for it. But it's actually just his real tattoo.
Interesting. I mean, that's good. They found a way to incorporate that instead of being like, hey, cover that up every time.
Yeah.
As of now.
And then we do see it again in the next story as well, when he like is messing with the machines and stuff. Yeah, I found it was a bit odd that he's not really like fully Doctor mode until like halfway through the story, which is a bit interesting.
Well, I mean, that's, the post-regeneration quirk, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or at least what later on has become interpreted as such.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he does quite a lot this story, including stealing the clothes and the car.
And the wheelchair. Running off in the wheelchair.
Yes, and the wheelchair. My God, the chase scene in the wheelchair was actually really funny.
Yeah.
So, how did we feel about Pertwee's whole performance this story? Not just the regeneration itself, but everything that the story deals with, how he kind of steps into the role of the Doctor. Did he make a good first impression, you think?
Yeah, I think he made a pretty good first impression. I think the next story definitely helped add to that first impression with him, but yeah.
Yes.
I liked him.
We'll definitely get into that with the next one, but I do think, in terms of, like, the episodes, it took a little bit, but I do think, like, as a whole serial, I think in these 4 episodes, he came into his own as the Doctor pretty quickly, which is nice.
Yeah. once he got into like the full swing of things in like the last 2 episodes of the story, he definitely made a good impression there.
Mm-hmm. Especially with his companion, which is kind of an interesting scenario because Liz is not quite a companion.
Yeah.
At least not yet. Like, she's not stepped into the TARDIS. She's very doubtful of pretty much everything about him. It's more so just that they work together. They are co-scientists of UNIT.
Yeah. I think she's definitely an interesting character we got there. It's also just, it's funny because, like, she doesn't even really want to be part of UNIT at first. But then I guess she meets the Doctor and it's like, yeah, I guess we work together well. I'll stick around.
Oh, interesting about Pertwee. In our chat from Sonic X Ethan, we have John Pertwee was a stunt comedian before he grew as a radio drama star, which attracted casting to him. He loved acting for stunt scenes to his run. I love asking for stunt scenes to his run. That's actually really funny when you think about all the different things that he does. Yeah. He has a lot of like very like visibly silly scenes.
Yeah.
As the Doctor in both of these in both of these serials.
Yeah. You can tell he has fun with it.
Yeah, which is good, which is important. But how did we feel about the Autons and the Nestene as the villains in the Spearhead from Space? This first appearance of them and the window shop dummies coming to life and all that. Very very similar to the very first episode of the revival of the show. Yeah. In retrospect, with how that was handled.
I think they made a strong first impression with these monsters, especially because, like, you know, people find mannequins creepy. So even if they're not like exactly mannequins, I think they do a good job with it. And then it was funny when they go to Madame Tussauds and they're like, these are also Autons.
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool. I liked how they presented all of that, and also the one Auton they had like running around, like the one mask they had for them was genuinely very creepy.
Yeah,
but it was honestly like a fun story. I think as like villains, they still felt a little weird. Like their ultimate goal was still a little okay. But I think there was still a lot of fun getting there and dealing with them, and very much an invasion of the body snatchers kind of story.
Yeah. And apparently they wanted to have a scene where they broke out of, like, the mannequins broke out of like a window, and apparently they weren't allowed to do that, so that's why Russell T. Davies had to do that in his first episode. Because he wanted to do what they wanted to do the whole time. He made sure it happened.
That's funny. Got to actually do it this time, yeah.
Yeah, because it would have been a mess to have to clean that up when they're actually shooting on location.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think
that's fun, though. Like, they clearly had fun, but also the people running from the Autons, like the scene of the Autons causing terror was kind of silly.
Yeah, a little bit. And there was the John Ransom character. He just felt like he was maybe playing up the craziness a bit too much after he saw the Autons. He really overacted for that role.
Yeah, and then they never really find out what happens to him. How he was like completely destroyed.
I did find it funny how it's like, destroy him, and then it's like, okay, fully destroy him, and then he had to say that twice with like the other guy as well.
Yeah, there's destroy and there's fully destroy.
Yeah,
and it's the fact that it leaves like no trace whatsoever is just really silly.
Yeah, they just thought the guy ran off. I did like how, though, like, with the Autons, it kind of, like, it did the same idea as Rose, and it also did the same idea as what Stephen Moffat did with them, where, like, they're just replacing people, because, you know, that happens with Rory.
Yeah, that's true. It's really like an interesting idea, too, like, the way it plays out, how it's not just, you know, the Autons, like, you have everything going on with the meteorites, right? Like, you have this whole search for them, and the way, like, they're homing in on them. Like, You have people finding the meteorites for themselves and just being like real jerks about it.
Yeah. That guy, I did like
challenging
that
the
character.
military.
He was funny, like the guy that found it.
He was funny. He was pretty funny.
I feel like the weak point
think-
would probably be like the Nestine consciousness itself, because it's just like tentacles in a jar.
Okay, but watching John Pertwee like have fun pretending to be strangled by them was really funny.
Yeah.
Because you could tell how much work he's doing to keep it on him.
Yeah, that's true.
I think something I personally find to be a little bit of a weak point that I would have liked them to go into more is they really play up Liz as a character and how skeptical of everything she is, because she's a woman of science. Like she really needs definitive proof of everything. She folds very quickly with the Doctor, I feel like. The only thing she didn't was on like everything related to the TARDIS, because we never actually see her go inside. But I think, even though I don't think she ever actually saw the Auton at first, that like the others, like that the unit was shooting at, she just like heard it was there. I don't think she physically saw it. I think or got a good look at it. I think she folded on the alien thing a little too quickly.
Yeah.
And I know, they can only do so much in a certain amount of time, but I would have liked to see her keep more of her skepticism, because once it's gone, she's kind of not really skeptic of much else, including in like the next story either.
Yeah.
Like, she kind of just takes the Doctor at his word for most things now, and all the skepticism she had from the start of Spearhead from Space, where, she's so doubtful that UNIT really does deal with aliens or anything of that nature, she just kind of has no problem accepting now.
Yeah, I had that written down here too, where like she doubts all of the Brigadier's stories about the Doctor, and then immediately upon meeting the Doctor, she's just like fully invested. And they just get along great.
So I like that they get along. I like that they're both scientists, but I would have liked to see her coming to terms with a lot of that stuff being real, and not just taking things at their word because she likes the Doctor, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Really like coming to terms with how much there really is that she doesn't know. Just because I think as a scientist, there's a lot more they could do with her character of discovering these things,
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, we're not with her very long, so who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely see how that goes. But I do think they did a little bit better with her in Doctor Who and the Silurians, because she's playing a lot of scientist roles in that one, while also juggling unit work that she doesn't want to be doing.
Yeah.
Her role as a scientist is pretty important in this one.
Oh, and Spearhead from Space was also written by Robert Holmes, who was the Crotons in the Space Pirates, by the way.
Oh, okay.
This is his third.
Definitely his best one yet.
Yeah. And apparently he reused the idea from a movie he had written from like 5 years beforehand, where it was a very similar idea of like an alien crash lands and then is taken to a hospital. That was just called Invasion from 1965.
Huh, okay.
Oh, and this was also first time the Doctor is officially established to have two hearts. We had the two hearts thing here.
Was this the first time?
Yeah, because
that's right.
They mentioned other species had two hearts, but they never said that the Doctor did.
That's right.
And then he also uses he uses John Smith as his alias for UNIT.
Yeah, it's like one of his first times that he really locks into that from Jamie.
Yeah.
Sonic X Ethan says in our chat, a lot of Time Lord lore is introduced in this run.
Yeah,
that makes sense too, especially since it was the previous story where they finally introduced the Time Lords by name.
Yeah.
And, physically. So it makes sense that now they really want to try to flesh them out more and how they're different from humans.
Yep. And obviously, we're getting the Master very soon.
Yeah.
Very close to that one.
That's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. So, Spearhead from Space, fun episode. I liked it, or fun serial. I liked it as an opener. I liked kind of the introduction to this doctor, this new companion, and the Brigadier as like a recurring character. I think it did a great job kind of establishing the doctor's role here as well, that he is stuck here, and that he's dealing with it.
Yeah.
But I think the next episode, the whole serial, Doctor Who and the Silurians, I really liked this one. I think I liked it a lot more than Spearhead from Space. Not that I dislike Spearhead from Space.
Doctor Who and the Silurians is definitely very good.
I see Sonic X even says Snorefest, sorry. And those are the kind of things you can say to us if you support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for even just $1 a month, you can get into our Discord, where we'll be encouraging discussions between episodes about what we're watching and all, and you'll even get early access to these episodes. But if you support us at our companion tier, you'll be able to watch live as we record. We have a little side text chat, and you can tell us your thoughts as we go. Like here, I think Doctor Who and the Silurians is fun, but Sonic X Ethan says Snorefest. Yeah. Unless that's Sea Devils is a better remake. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. We'll get to that one eventually.
Yeah.
But I think, so what I really liked about this Doctor Who and the Silurian story is that it's actually very, again, coming from seeing modern first, then coming back for classics, it's actually very similar to the Series 5 story with the 11th Doctor and Amy.
Yeah.
Like, down to the fact that it's from basically a mining service, a mining company. It is from scientists in the area that discover them because they basically interfere with them, and now they have to deal with that. The biggest difference really comes down to how the Silurians themselves, one, function as a species, because they have very different powers in the classics, evidently, compared to the modern era. But they also, they're much more aggressive in the modern series, I think.
Yeah.
So seeing them here, where they're much more focused on the science and much more focused on, they just want to revive their species, but the humans keep getting in. So you know what, we want our planet back. We don't want to coexist with the humans, and that leads some of them to being more aggressive than others. I think it's a really interesting story. It's one that might have dragged on a little bit more than necessary, being 7 episodes.
Yeah.
Primarily because we suddenly launched into a big epidemic story for like 2 episodes that just gets resolved kind of quickly eventually. When it finally gets resolved, after all the time they spent on it, it's just like a very quick thing. And then they're back to dealing directly with the Silurians, which I don't know how I feel about, considering how long we spent on it, because it really felt like it was just used to write out half the cast.
Yeah. Apparently this was supposed to be a 6-parter originally. So part of me wonders if, like, the epidemic idea just came into it late in there just to give them an extra episode. It's kind of what I wonder.
Maybe. Because I feel like the epidemic idea is actually really fascinating with what they're dealing with, but I would have preferred that be like the sole focus of a Silurian story.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they're spreading this like ancient, for like or either ancient or from their own side, like this disease that humans don't know how to deal with. Dealing with that as like a 4-episode story of like, oh, the Silurians release this big disease, we have to stop them and stop that. That as its own self-contained thing, I think would have been good.
Yeah.
But because it's part of this, it feels a little disjointed, and it kind of messes with the pacing of the entire thing.
Yeah, it just kind of comes out of nowhere and then disappears. As soon as the doctor finds a vaccine for it.
It was very inconsistent, too, because some people were dying, like, right after getting first exposed, and then some people were dying, like, what seemed like days later.
Yeah. I did find it funny, though, how there's the one character that's an anti-vaxxer, and then he believes the government's making up a conspiracy to steal his facility. And then he dies.
Yeah, and then he dies, like, very abruptly, very suddenly, after, like, attacking the Brigadier. That's the other part of it, too. Like, they kept, like, driving home the idea, like, what if Liz and the Brigadier have been too exposed to this thing? What if the Doctor's been too exposed to this thing? and they play up the idea that like even each of them have moments of not feeling well. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's a lot of good ideas in this story. I like the suits for the Silurians. The way they talk is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Their power set confuses me a bit, but I think the tension throughout these stories of everybody at each other's throats constantly, and the Doctor wanting to get these species to coexist is really good.
Yeah. I think it's just a fascinating idea to just have them like some of the Silurians want to get along with the humans and others don't, and it's a fascinating little idea to do.
Yeah,
it's definitely very
Which is,
similar
again,
to what came back later.
yeah, exactly. Like the fact that some of them just want to study the humans, which is very much like modern. Some of them want all-out war.
Yeah. And a fun fact is that they set the hibernation to 50 years in this story. And if we take this story to be 1970, then The Hungry Earth is actually 50 years later, because it's set in 2020.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Obviously, they're two different groups of Silurians,
Yeah.
but like the timeline does add up there.
No, yeah, that's actually really interesting. I wonder if that was intentional.
Kind of assume
I wonder
it
if,
probably
like, when-
was.
Like choosing to set it in 2020. It was. Okay, it was. Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's actually really cool. I like that.
Also, apparently this story was supposed to just be called The Silurians, but then there was a miscommunication with the graphics department, so they put the credits on it with Doctor Who and the Silurians, so they just rolled with it. Because like they already had the credits
Doctor Who
saying that.
Doctor Who and the Silurians.
Yeah. Because I think like scripts normally said like Doctor Who and the whatever, and then just when the full episode got put out, they just dropped the first part. But
That makes sense.
I guess the graphics department didn't hear that this time.
That's okay. That's okay. I wanted to ask you about this because I have this in my notes here. How did you feel about... I don't actually know if they were a couple, but the two that were like the head scientists in charge of this like nuclear reactor. The ones who knew about the Silurians all along and were trying to learn from them. Because I kind of have in my notes, they feel very disconnected to the whole story.
Yeah. They are a little odd, especially when like the one guy's like just like going back and forth from different places and like nobody notices until halfway through the story.
It's weird. Like they're playing it like he's being a villain, but he isn't. And then turns out, oh, well, if I trap the Silurian, they'll tell me everything. And then he is found dead. We don't actually know how he died.
Well, we kind of have to assume that Silurian killed him, I guess.
Yeah, like we like the presentation of it, like we assume the Silurian killed him, but it doesn't feel like it was in the same self-defense way as the other ones, which is why I was surprised we didn't actually like learn anything about how that happened, how that played out. I thought we were going to find that for some reason the other scientist, the woman, killed him.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to find that she killed him to blame it on the Silurian so that they would go to destroy them.
Yeah. I assume it's probably
She
just
was
like
very adamant about that.
it was probably just like when the Silurian found out that like he was being held captive, he probably just got angry and killed him.
Probably. But it's a little weird that they didn't go into that.
Yeah. I did like though that like even though the Doctor just saw that the Silurian killed someone, he went to shake his hand immediately and was like, "Hi, I guess you're a Silurian."
Yeah.
That's like that's the Doctor in one scene, you know?
It really is. It really is. And I love the way he is with the Silurians in general throughout this whole story.
Yeah.
I think even though the humans see it as, oh, he's trying to betray them, it's really, you really see the Doctor's traits of wanting peace, wanting these different species to be able to coexist.
Yeah. That's definitely what he's all about. And I found is a bit interesting that like this early on they have the Doctor completely disagreeing with what the Brigadier is doing.
Yeah.
I guess they wanted to make sure you know that like even if he's working with the military, he's not like that kind of person.
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily agree with everything they're doing.
Yeah. because he
even down to the very last scene of the entire story, which I thought was really powerful and really good. Of just the Doctor seeing that the Silurians are destroyed, like their base is all blown up. Like that's genocide. He's not happy with that.
Yeah. Apparently, the original idea was he would have been saddened by the loss of knowledge that they possessed, but then Barry Letts, who's the new producer, like his first act was to change it so that he's disgusted at their murder instead.
Yeah,
which is definitely good.
Far better. Yeah, much better for his character. Like, yes, he clearly was interested in their technology and the knowledge they had, but it's far more important for the Doctor to be interested in them as a species, them as people. Yeah, it's far more powerful that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was written by Malcolm Hulke, who was the writer for the War Games, and he also did the Faceless Ones before that. Apparently he was hesitant to write for the Third Doctor because he didn't like the idea that it was like trapped on Earth, so your two ideas are either like a mad scientist or an alien invasion. So he came up with the third idea, which is monsters from before humanity.
Yeah.
That was his idea.
Which, to some degree, is still treated like an invasion. But it definitely has a different vibe to it all, which is good.
Yeah, and then he comes back for... Like, there's a couple more Silurian stories. I think maybe one more. And then he also does the Sea Devils as well.
Okay.
So he'll be back a couple more times.
Okay, nice.
And this was also the first time... The first time they used a green screen was in this story. Was for when, like, the T-Rex was there in the one spot.
Yeah, they kind of dropped the T-Rex, huh?
Yeah.
They kind of dropped the dinosaur outside of... You see it in passing a few times in their base.
Yeah. That was... It was also funny because apparently behind the scenes they were like... They made it a costume for a person because they thought that it would interact with people, but then they realized, well, no, it's not actually going to directly interact with anybody, so they could have just made a miniature instead. Because it never actually is, like, in a scene with anybody, because they wanted to make it look bigger than it actually was anyways.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because you got to make that... You got to do a green screen so you can get the scaling accurate there.
But yeah, I quite liked this story.
Yeah, I had a good time with it. I definitely think most of the people that actually like worked at the research center were really insufferable, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah. And the
Sonic Ethan says, CSO, by the way, is a term. Color separation overlay. Some Doctor Who fans get pissy about that, but yes, it's just Gen 1 blue screen.
Yep.
Okay, that's funny.
The Doctor almost causes a nuclear explosion as well, which is funny.
He's just very casual about it, too.
His plan to save everybody was to just
casual about it.
Cause a nuclear explosion, and we find out, oh, we can't leave? Uh-oh.
Now I have to do something about it. But, like, would they even have been able to get far enough away if they could leave? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And, like, they're not far from, like, civilization, so I feel like it would have probably been a bad idea anyways.
Yeah.
Like, there's a village nearby.
That would not have been good. Yeah, and, I mean, like, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, destroy one village versus get the entire ozone layer destroyed.
Yeah. It's a trolley problem.
Definitely one that is less bad. Yeah, exactly, trolley problem.
I also do.
I will say the power going out in the research center was a little strange. So like, oh, the lights are out. Oh, we're on emergency backup power. Oh, the telephones won't work. Oh, now the elevator's not working. It's like, yeah, the power's out. What did you think?
Yeah. I did like, though, that the Doctor gets to, like, actually be a medical doctor here.
Yeah, that's true.
Very good. And then I like the scene of, like...
You get a lot of it.
Showing him, like, not really wanting to take the medicine, but then Liz forcing him to.
Yes. It's like, oh, did it hurt? Oh, yes, terrible.
Yeah, it was agony.
It was agony.
They definitely have a good dynamic between those two. by
They do.
towards the end of
and
this, especially.
I'm really looking forward to seeing more.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we only get 2 more stories with them, but they're great together.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's definitely like a shorter companion in this case, but we'll see how it continues to go.
I also found it funny how multiple times, like, the Brigadier's asking where the doctor is, and then the doctor just walks into the room.
Yeah,
I love
that's
that.
pretty consistent. It keeps happening a lot.
It happened like 2 or 3 times in this story, I think. And this was also Bessie's first appearance.
It was Bessie's first appearance. The doctor was so proud to be fixing her up and making her work, and Liz is just like, you're never gonna get that old thing to work.
Then he has like a special liquid at the end to fix the car. It goes through the whole engine.
Which, now, the thing he was carrying, it looked like it looked like what the bacteria was held in.
Yeah.
Or like the blood or something. Like, it looked like he just took something that he already had on him to do that. Which I was like, okay. If that's what you think the best use for that is.
Yeah. It is just a bit funny that, like, we haven't seen the inside of the TARDIS yet. Which I don't know how often we will in the Third Doctor era, but it's just funny that, like, we've gone through 11 episodes and we haven't seen that, and we haven't done that ever before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, he is stuck on Earth. They probably don't want us thinking too much about it.
Yeah. Ethan.
The prop is in storage? Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, we saw the outside very briefly in the first story. But then...
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. I know at one point, I think he, like, pulls the console out, and, like, the console's outside of the TARDIS at some point in one story, I think.
Oh, that's weird.
Because I remember seeing, like, a picture of that. But I guess we'll see if we ever go inside there this whole season.
Man. I think, like... I'm so fascinated by what they're choosing to do with this premise.
Yeah.
Like, for this whole season. Because I think it's so different. But the timing of it with, like, the entire production of the show just feels so different. But it's warmed up very quickly, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm really, like, enjoying this so far already. It's not really, like, that rough of a start. I think all the recurring characters are, like, fairly well established already. And I know there's only a few more episodes in this season because the season itself is pretty short. But I think these are pretty strong because some of these things now, like dealing with the Autons and the Silurians, like nowadays, those are 2 of the most iconic things in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Maybe not most, but 2 very iconic things in Doctor Who.
Yeah. I think they definitely had... It's a very strong start to the new idea to also just show you that, like, we can still do basically very similar stories. Because the Silurians is very similar to, like, a base undersea story, even though it's not technically that. So, like, it's very reminiscent of what we've had throughout the Second Doctor era, while set in a different sort of way.
Yeah, and the entire, like, production behind it feels different. Like, obviously so. The quality of it, too. But the kind of stories do feel like they iterate well off of what we were getting back then.
Yeah.
And thankfully, no more missing episodes.
Yep. Oh, and there were the cliffhangers in this story were just so funny, of just, like, John Pertwee having to do a silly face.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Of, like, he's clearly having a lot of fun. Like, John Pertwee, sit there, make your eyes go wide, and shake.
Yeah.
Had to do that, like, twice at least.
Yeah. That was just so funny.
Mm-hmm.
And according to Ethan, the introduction to the Doctor Who cliffhanger sound is next episode.
Oh my god. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. Well, on that note, I know this is a little bit out of order. We'll still talk news, but before that, do you want to go into what we need to watch for next time as prep?
So for next time, we will be finishing Season 7, because there's only 2 more stories left, which are The Ambassadors of Death and Inferno. They are both 7-parters. And
okay, so kind of long. Okay.
Yeah, The Ambassadors of Death is going to be the final story written by David Whittaker, who has been around for a while.
Okay.
He moves on from Doctor Who after this. And then I'm not sure who Inferno is written by, but yeah. Those are our 2 stories.
Songtex Heathen says they are okay and peak in that order. So I'm definitely curious about that.
Apparently it's Don Houghton who wrote Inferno. I know some vague details about what Inferno's about. I've heard about it.
I've not actually heard anything about either of these, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. They'll be interesting for sure.
I mean, yeah, with how good of a first impression the Third Doctor's made, seemingly for both of us, and Liz has made, like, it seems like we're really liking what we're getting here. So getting more of them, before Liz leaves at the end of the season is going to be good.
Yeah. And the next season is just very different because the Master shows up, and then I think he's, like, more or less just, like, always there for the Third Doctor era.
Oh, okay.
He comes back, like, multiple times a season, I'm pretty sure. So it's a very different vibe afterwards.
Man. All of season 8? Oh my god. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a good time. But no, I'm actually like very excited going forward. I've always heard so much about the Third Doctor, but I haven't really seen much of him. So I'm really liking this. And I know back when and we'll go more into this when we finish the Third Doctor later on, but like I know like early on, like First Doctor had kind of like a rough first impression. You really see him kind of come into his own over all of his seasons. Second Doctor takes a few episodes to really get going into his personality and strengths. I feel like the Third Doctor, like in these 2 stories, I know him pretty well already. Like I feel like I get a really good understanding of who he is as the Doctor already.
Yeah, it's definitely a very strong first impression you get from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he's like a lot of it was just what John Pertwee brought into it himself, because apparently he was told like you're just playing John Pertwee in this, so just play yourself. And I know that he does like karate and stuff in later stories, and it's just like because he knows how to do it in real life.
Man, he really made the Doctor himself. That's funny.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see more of that. I'm excited to see more of that.
Yeah.
But I'm backing up a little bit before we, dive further into stuff for next time. We do have some news that has happened in terms of like classic Who stuff and whatnot. So I'll let you handle the news side of things, Joy.
Yeah. So, unfortunate news was that Jean Marsh, who played Princess Joanna in The Crusade, and Sarah Kingdom in Dalek's Master Plan, as well as a third character we haven't seen yet, and I think it's called Battlefield, the 7th Doctor episode. She passed away the other day, which is sad. Felt like we shouldn't mention that.
Is unfortunate. I've seen the 7th Doctor story that she's in. She's like one of the main villains in that, and she brings a great performance to that. I did not realize that was the same actress as Sarah Kingdom.
Yeah.
Definitely seems to be having a great time in that role in the 7th Doctor story. And she was great as Sarah Kingdom. I know we talked a lot about that in Dalek's Master Plan and how she very much seemed like a companion in the way she played out. And it was sad that she was only there for that story.
Yeah. It is
tragic character.
It is just funny, though, that like she works alongside Nicholas Courtney in 2 of these stories, but they're never playing the same character in either of them.
That's true.
Because like the Brigadier is also in Battlefield, and then he's playing a different character in Dalek's Master Plan. I just find that funny.
That's true.
But yeah, and she was doing Big Finish as Sarah Kingdom semi-recently as well.
Yeah, for a while.
Which is funny because like they just said like all these stories take place in the middle of Dalek's Master Plan. Don't worry about it.
Sure, why not?
There's like 7 stories in the middle of that one story.
Yeah, it's already long enough. They have a Christmas special thrown in the mix already. Yeah. They could do plenty in that time. That's a mess, but rest in peace, Jean Marsh, because she was pretty great.
Ethan says Big Finish will say a smoke break is enough for 6 books. It's true.
It really is. It really can be. You can turn anything into a moment for Big Finish.
Yeah.
Especially with like how modern Doctor Who has kind of established that like, yeah, the TARDIS can be taken away and returned to the same exact moment it left, and the entire memories of the adventure erased from that time period. Like, you could absolutely do something like that, and sure, okay.
And then like we sort of did also get news a little while back about the Ninth Doctor Big Finish. They released the synopsis for like the first episode. I think they did that on the 20th anniversary of Rose, which was like a few weeks ago. And basically it's just they're going back to the Powell estate. And they say that like there's a guy that like returns to the Powell estate and then meets back up with Rose and finds out that about the Doctor being there, and then a monster shows up.
I see.
So that tells us that we're immediately just going to be back home, so I assume it's going to be like after the time jump then. So it's going to be like after
oh yeah, that would make sense.
After
so
the
second half of the season
story.
The first half. Yeah, that would make sense.
Because otherwise Rose wouldn't be back home.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be after she went missing for a year.
Yeah, I mean that's good though, because the strength of those characters is definitely in the second half of their season.
Yeah, and we also know Jackie Tytler's in that first episode as well.
Good.
She's in the cast list.
She's done so much for Big Finish. It's really fun, actually. She's in a lot.
But yeah.
But speaking of kind of modern Doctor Who stuff, as a reminder, we're not talking about the new season during these episodes. When the new season finishes, Shooty got with second season, we'll have a whole episode dedicated to that at the end of that. But there is one thing I actually do want to mention about it news-wise that's happened since our last recording, and that's the fact that they're actually releasing Doctor Who Unleashed internationally on YouTube at the end of each episode. So we're getting all of our behind-the-scenes information not locked behind BBC in the UK only.
Yeah.
And I really like getting to see that right away this time. I think it's great that they're really trying to get people to understand what behind the scenes is like, and they're not making that information harder to get.
Yeah. We don't need VPNs anymore to watch Doctor Who Unleashed.
Yeah, right? No, it's great. Like in the lead up to season 2, they dropped like all the ones for season 1 and the 60th anniversaries and the Christmas special, and we were wondering if when they were gonna release the ones for season 2, and I think most theorized it was gonna be after the season finished.
Yeah.
But no, they're dropping on YouTube like right when they air.
Yeah.
So that's actually like really, really good.
Yeah.
We're getting all of our behind the scene information very early on, and it's exciting.
Yep. And then they have already had like other behind the scenes stuff that they just regularly put on YouTube, so you're getting a lot more.
Yeah.
This time now. Because there was like a separate,
too, which is nice.
A separate behind the scenes thing that went up on YouTube last season, and then they're still doing that as well.
Yep. So quite a lot going into it, which is good because it gives us even more Doctor Who content in the wake of the potential of a bit of a hiatus after this season. But we'll see how that goes when we get there.
Yeah. We'll see.
Alrighty. Well, as a reminder, as a reminder, you can support us on Patreon to either get these episodes early or watch along with us, like Sonic X Ethan has been doing and giving us little tidbits as we go. Definitely always fun to have extras in here and talking about the episodes with us and giving us more behind the scenes info than we already had. It's definitely fun to do.
Yep.
But before next week, make sure to watch The Ambassadors of Death and The Inferno. Those are going to be the end of season 7, because now that's a lot shorter.
Yeah.
But should be a pretty good time. You can find those on the BBC iPlayer or Tubi TV or anywhere else you choose to watch these things at this point. They're no longer lost episodes, so they're much easier to find now.
Yeah.
But that'll do it for this week. I have been Triss. You can find me on most socials at ToonTriss.
And I've been Joy. You can find me at Joy Content.
And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.